Okay, this episode is very serious. Solemn was what I was feeling after watching it the first time. And I have watched it twice at this point, so now, yeah, I just want you to, if you haven't watched it yet, like, understand the gravity and the weight of this. And in my initial reaction, I even told you guys a little bit about my family history and how the original part of my family is from Oklahoma and they migrated to Chicago, much like what you see in the series. So, I mean, it's a part of my family legacy. Just Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a part of my family legacy, and it's just to see it. All right. Now, I have to make this a little light because y'all know I'm animated. Shout out to Tick's biceps in the shop. But back to the seriousness. The emotion was there both times. Spoiler alert. You've been alerted, period. Okay, if you ain't watch. And definitely have Kleenex because you're going to need it unless you don't have a soul like Christina. I am Kim, aka Glam Powered, and this is a Fandom Lovecraft episode 9 recap. People, context, questions, tidbits, and stay for the tidbits because I'm going to give you some more education and resources that pertain to this episode. This is my notes outline, okay? Like I said, before we get into it, this is sensitive. Okay, I literally have Kleenex ready to talk about this episode. Please be compassionate and understand that the series is not just a series. It's about things that actually happened, okay, to like actual people. Okay, my family was affected by this. What you saw in this episode happened the way it was depicted. This was not a dramatization or historical event, okay? In America, stop treating Black people like trash. And please vote. Please vote. Okay. First, let's talk about the people. We have Montrose's father, Verton, the monster, a monster in this episode. We had to deal with the real life horror, right? Which is racism and real life monsters, which are the results of said racism. So, Verton. Okay, we had Hattie, Tick's great-grandmother. I loved her. I loved her character. I loved her so much. We have Montrose, the open-hearted, and Tick, the hero. He was a hero. Letty, the hero. Okay. I mean, I know Tick is billed as the hero, but Letty keeps coming through. She keeps coming through. Even on the Instagram, I think one of my Instagrams a while back was who's the hero, because she just keeps coming through. Okay, and then Hippolyta, the knowledge bearer. Yes, you heard me right. Yes, if you didn't watch, she's back in the nick of time. Let's get into context. So we start with the family arguing over Dee, who's in the in-between, essentially a coma, but not, more like a deep trance. And they're playing the blame game and working through their feelings. Oh, it was your fault. It was my fault. I didn't know. It was everybody's fault. After they go through all that, troops are told as they try to come up with solutions, and Ruby convinces Quilliam to save Dee. And of course she does it as long as she gets what she wants in return, which is Tick's body for the autumnal equinox, right? She needs a body. And she needs his body specifically and all of his blood, okay? As in, he will be dead by the end of this because she needs all of his blood, right? Montrose is both mad and conflicted at Letty for accepting the invulnerability spell because he knows what's at stake for Tick, Dee, and his grandchild. He's like, all of this is a mess. All of this. Montrose is just going through it in this episode on so many levels. He goes through it a lot, but this was probably the hardest Montrose episode. There's a lot of emotion coming out of him, almost all at the same time because everything's happening at the same time. Everybody's telling their business. Ruby is basically outs herself as Quilliam's lover. Nobody says anything about that, by the way, but they all seem to understand. Nobody said nothing. Nobody was read about anything, which was really interesting because some really epic stuff happened in the last episode. Like, they are going through so much stuff in this episode that they didn't even have time to, like, really process what happened in the other episode. The last episode, there was no recap or like, no. It was just like, we got to deal with this. This is where we are right now. And this is what's happening. Putting out fires. And no pun intended. But yeah, emotional fires, real fires. This is what was going on. Okay. So that happened. And they find out from Quilliam that they need the Book of Names to completely remove the curse and the blood of her closest relative, who, for all they know, is heaven knows where right now. We don't know where Hippolyta is. And she assures them that they can at least reset the curse, the course of the curse to delay what appears to be the inevitable. Okay, mini prediction: D is not gonna die. They gonna figure it out. Okay, her mother is going to figure it out. Okay, mini prediction. So cut to Captain Lancaster, decomposing in his office. And isn't that the way karma works? Isn't that the way karma works? He had somebody else's body in there, and we never even got to the bottom of what that was about. That side, they didn't go into detail about the man that was in the closet. Here he is decomposing in that same closet. Ain't that the way karma works? Whatever invulnerability spell he'd been casting on his body is not working after Tick Shagas effed him up. They effed that man up. Okay, brought him to the brink. They tried to use another kidnapped black person's body to patch him up. Yeah, that's what that was about, by the way. William shows up to gloat and not extend any mercy. Lancaster realizes it's actually Christina because William is actually dead because he the one that killed him. Surprise, she swapped his regeneration room for a decomposition room, right? Same spell, different intention. Did y'all listen when she said how you cast a spell? Let me tell you something. You can use the same stuff to do different things. That's we not talking about that right now, but bet. She literally watches the man die and smiles. Wicked. This woman is wicked. And, a side note, because I was thinking is, if he was given a little bit longer to live, he could have freed Dee from the curse relatively easily. But this show, and I mean, it is what it is. The show is about what it's about. It's got to be, the process has got to be 10 times harder just because of the nature of the show and what's being addressed. So she could have really been a hero and an aid, not just by restarting the course of the curse, but by actually delivering the man that could actually get rid of it. But she didn't. She got her revenge instead. Wicked woman. We see Montrose fighting his demons this entire episode. I feel like he's fighting all the demons all at once. It's been like a gradual layering on of the demons, but this episode, it's like they all come to a head, all of them, all at once. And it's just horrible. Okay? So, I mean, when he tells Tick the truth about who his daddy is, and Letty walks right on in as Tick is finishing, reacting like she does, sensing the weight of what just happened, but maybe not quite hearing. Y'all know how she does that. She just stay walking in on serious conversation and giving that little confused look, knowing that she just walked in on something. Okay, so that happens. Montrose tells Tick the truth about the paternity situation. George is the daddy. What? This is Tick And he once again, he only has a moment to process because they got to go and deal with some whole other stuff. They got to save D. And then on top of that, Mama always knows best because Hippolyta just pops up out of the blue after spending 200 of our years on Earth, 504, armed with infinite knowledge and ready to save her baby. She came back in the nick of time. I swear for life, she got an interdimensional SOS from her baby and knew to come back and save her baby because she came back right when she needed to. Okay? Right when she needed to. So, they end up traveling back to the observatory in Kentucky to retrieve the book because Quilliam told them that's what they need. And they enact Hippolyta's plan to retrieve the book of names from Tick's great grandmother's house in the past, right? They're going back to his mama's house to get the book. And they thinking, oh, but the time machine is broken. And she looked at them and was like, if y'all don't get in this car, who are you talking to? I know things that you don't know. I have experienced things that you can't conceive. Get your ass in this car. I got to save my baby. I ain't got time for you. Okay? Basically, that I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she said. All right. And then Montrose tells Letty that Tick knows. And on a side note, did y'all notice that Montrose is a little bit more tender and boy-like even before they jump to the future? Like this episode, we just see the child in him. And I saw the child in him and felt the presence of the child in him more than anything else. I wasn't really feeling his wounds. I wasn't really feeling his wounds. I wasn't really feeling his scabs, his blockages. That's not what I just felt the boy in him. That was what was on display this episode. I mean, this is the Montrose that George was referring to in episode 2. That softness and that sweetness. It was just there. No one really understands the gravity of what's about to happen because they didn't experience it. He's the only one that experienced this in their group. And they're all like, let's go, let's go. Montrose is the only one. It was hard to witness their insensitivity towards his display of emotion because he was in his feelings, but also understandable because he's been difficult this whole time. You get what you give, right or wrong. We see that. And then the worst possible thing that could ever happen to Montrose happens. They jump back in time to Tulsa, 1921, prom night. In the night of the atrocity known as the Tulsa Massacre. Yes, you heard me right. I said prom night. Yes, this was prom night. This was somebody's baby's prom night. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the horror? Montrose is having difficulty adjusting for obvious reasons. Tick just thinks Montrose is being Montrose. He doesn't understand the weight, like I said, of what's about to happen. And he goes in on Montrose, who slips away to save a friend, right? His first love. They've made their way through the time machine. They've devised a plan. We're going to split up to get the book, blah, blah, blah. And Tick, he's unraveling. He gets away from them. And I said Tick. Montrose is unraveling. He gets away from them. And Tick is just like, oh, S. Like, here we go again with this S, right? But he slips away to save a friend. Now, mind you, the first rule of time travel is rule number 1, don't change nothing. So you're not supposed to change nothing. But he's off to go do what he feels he needs to do. And we find out that this boy was actually Montrose's first love. Another young black boy who we later find out is also shot right in front of Montrose's face. Blew that baby's head right off. Right in front of his face. Very similar to the slaying of his brother in episode 2. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I'm jumping around a bit. So before we find out about what we witnessed, find out about what we witnessed Montrose being beaten up by his father. We see that first because he's not acting like a boy is supposed to, air quotes. He's getting his ASS beat in broad daylight on the front lawn by drunken Verton Freeman. Like I said, I was about to say Verton Montrose. Really? I mean, basically, yeah. Now you see what happens. He was the monster in this episode. One of them, because it was plenty of them. He was one of them, okay? And Montrose manages to sneak off, like I said, while everyone is talking. You know, they're digesting what they're seeing and they're planning at the same time, and he slips away, okay? And then they realize they're gonna have to split up because the clock is ticking and they don't have time for Montrose and they gotta get the book. So Letty is tasked with retrieving the book from the house. Tick tracks down his dad to prevent him from changing anything in the timeline, and the massacre begins. I'm taking a moment. It was so difficult to watch this American horror story be portrayed. I'm moving through this recap, but I want you to know that this was difficult to watch. If you have not watched it, it's very difficult to watch. Very difficult to watch. I'm tearing up, literally tearing up right now. I'm just telling you, like, my ancestors went through so much. So much. Okay, you guys. So Tick finds Montrose, and Montrose tells Tick all he ever wanted to be was his father. My heart melted. That was such a beautiful, beautiful scene. I mean, the moment was arguably one of the most beautiful moments I've seen on television, because it just was like, what child does not want to hear this from their father? And parents, you know, good or bad or in between, like, who doesn't want to hear this? It was just such a beautiful scene. It's complicated because it's Montrose, and, you know, but they have yet another reconciliation in that moment. And Tick has convinced Montrose not to change the timeline, and he is forced to relive the ugliness of that night and re-witness it all over again. His lover being shot in the head, literally right in front of him. They were having a conversation, and the next thing you know, the gun is pointed at the baby's head, and his face is blown onto Montrose's. Okay, it's horrible, 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 horrible. So George and Dora come to his aid, and the dum-dums start attacking them. These white supremacists start attacking them. And remember that mysterious man with the bat that saved Montrose, George, and Dora? Turns out it was Tick. This was also a really wonderful scene. He hit the white supremacy out of those people. I mean, y'all know that he is violent. He put it to good use, though, in that scene. He beat the hell out of them. And it was therapeutic for him, because he was going through a lot and he didn't really have no time to, like, really take the time to think about it. He was thinking about it while he was beating them, because this was their fault. All of this stuff was their fault. Their fault. And they got theirs. And, you know, I hate to say that I'm starting to, like, you know, violence against women and portrayed in television is starting to become a reoccurring thing. I still think it's a little difficult to watch because they didn't used to have that on television when I was coming up, but they do now. I mean, he even bopped one of the ladies upside her head. He did. He bopped her upside her head. I mean, man, everybody was getting their licks. Everybody. So that happens. And while that's happening, Letty has to retrieve the book. She's struggling a bit because she knows they're about to die and there's nothing she can do about it. She has to lie and assure them, oh, everything's going to be okay, when she knows what's about to happen. And she really struggles with that. Fortunately, the vulnerability charm works in alternate dimensions, so she's protected. Tick's great grandmother is reluctant at first, but Letty convinces her in one of the most powerful moments the entire season. She was not here for her at first because she knew something was up. As soon as Letty stepped foot in the house, she saw her shoes and she looked at her. She was like, she not right. Who this woman, Harpo? Who this woman? She was like, nah, you ain't, I don't know what you are, who you are, but you're not right. So Letty had to explain everything to her, and she had moments to do this because the house was literally about to be burnt and they were all about to be incinerated in the house together. So this happened real quick in real time. She convinced her. And this is what Tick's great-grand said. She said, when my great-great-grandson is born, he will be my faith turned to flesh. Whew. Seriously, you guys, that scene was so powerful and so hard to watch. She stays and holds Tick Great-grand's hand as she's consumed by the flames. Letty is devastated and numb and still pregnant. And let me stop for a moment. This right here, this scene is symbolic of so much stuff. Pregnancy for other women is difficult, it can be difficult. It's a lot of things. Difficult can be one of them. Y'all don't know what it's like to have to deal with the stuff that Black women have to deal with on top of the regular stuff that women have to deal with. This episode was also about that. Black women go through so much. Black mothers go through so much. Even when the baby is in the womb, the baby ain't even here yet. And Letty has gone through so much. Just you can't imagine. I like to use that expression, but you can't. Unless you're a Black woman, you just can't. You can't. But I had to comment on that. She's pregnant while all of this is happening. I mean, the symbolism of that is so real to me. It is what it is. And her demeanor is very similar to what we saw in the last episode when the bullets was flying through the house. It's just that strength and that tired but holding on for what's to come. Babies are powerful. They are the light that pulls many of us through this darkness. They really are. And then Hippolyta is the motherboard for the portal. Okay, she's jacked herself into the time machine because she can now. She's had those enhancements in her wrist, so she's able to do it. But she struggles to keep it open long enough. Her hair turns blue. Okay, she's becoming Dee's character from the comic book. Was it Orythia Blue? And then they make it through all of that, and they make their way back to the observatory with the book. And that's where it ends. So much stuff happened, in terms of the detail and the actual depiction. I don't even know how to describe. This was a really visual episode. You have to see it. Seeing it and feeling it and experiencing it is a part of the experience of this episode, which quite frankly, it's an experience. So watch it, like I said, but definitely have some Kleenex. I teared up twice, maybe 3 times, just going through that. And I went through it with a relatively light energy and vibe. Okay? So that's the recap and the context. Let's get into some of the concepts here. I already spoke actually about Black mothers because I didn't include that in my notes originally. That came to me as I was speaking. But we have the inner child work that both Montrose and Dee are doing. Dee started in the last episode. Children have younger inner child work to do. They do. And we're usually not of consciousness to be doing the inner child work that young, but she has to in order to grow. And Montrose never dealt with his stuff, at least not in an effective way. He dealt with it by taking it out on Tick, and now he's having to deal with it literally, coming face to face with himself as a child, as a boy. Okay, so that's happening. We have finding peace with an unthinkable fate. Okay. I'm talking about so many things, but two things come to mind. Number one, Tick's great grand, I think it's great. Is it great grand? His great grand. She realizes that she's about to die and her whole family's about to die, and ain't nothing she can do with it but find peace and get ready to go to heaven. We also have Montrose. I mean, just with the idea of having to go back to that time, that by itself, damn. But you have to. You have to, because this is what you got to do to protect your family. So that's happening. This next one is making me tear up. This episode is so upsetting for so many reasons. What this country does to black men. When I was watching this episode, I had a realization about my father, and I almost cried then. So many black men are incarcerated and limited just because they were born in this country. Montrose is him. He is the embodiment of what I'm speaking about. I'm going to leave that at that. Then we have the feeling of being in a place you belong. It was so wonderful to see them in Greenwood. This is Black Wall Street, or the area that was destroyed, massacred. It was so nice to see them experience that, even if it was just for a moment. Some black people never ever experience this. They never have this experience. They don't even know what it's like. And it's sad, because I'm realizing even in this moment, if your normal is to be out of place, and like you just, we tend to accept a lot of things growing up black and American, then you might not have even conceptualized that this what is depicted in this episode. I have been blessed because I've experienced this, but it dawned on me that a lot of black people haven't. They've never experienced this before in their lives. Once again, can you imagine? Can you imagine? I can't explain it to you. I mean, maybe you get it, but it's just really just this feeling, like it came over me because I got excited because I know that feeling. I was like, I know that, but then I instantly thought, but wait, a lot of black people don't know that. That came to mind. And you know what I realized? I think it's in our DNA. When I say our DNA, I mean black people, to loot our neighborhoods during riots, because they've always been looted like this. Just like what we see in this episode. Always. We've been told repeatedly that our property is not worth F, so we should treat it like that. That is a problem. A lot of this stuff is just programming from history. Other people was doing it first, and then we just took on the energy of it, and we still do this us. The other thing that's in our DNA, and I'm talking about black people again, is success is hard or not for us, because every time we try to do something or have something of our own, we have to deal with barriers or it gets taken away from us, just like this. And in fact, this is not the only neighborhood of black excellence that was totally burnt down to a crisp. There are, go back in facts. The other town that I know about was Rosewood, but there are more. And there's a movie about Rosewood that came out a long time ago. I have watched that a couple of times. Man, once again, can you imagine? All over some jealousy. We don't have what you have, and you're not supposed to have it, so we're going to take it from you. What? Really? Prom night. Like I said, it was prom night. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Now let's get into the favorite scene. So first, when Letty was spotted by Tig's great grand, she sees her shoes and clocks her as soon as she enters. She was like, nah, nah, She just looked, and it was real brief, but you knew she knew. She didn't say anything, but she knew. And then when Montrose said, I mean, it was a beautiful scene, but difficult. Just so Montrose is beautiful and difficult. I cut out all the soft parts of myself just to be a man. Damn. You gotta go through all that, and you black on top of that. Imagine the weight. He's still not right, but you have to understand. You must. Tick taking the basketball bat to them dum-dums head. I was so here for it. And you could just, like I said earlier, you could feel the release of something in that scene. Okay, he has been through so much. That was a therapeutic ass beating for him. Man, woo! You could just see the relief and the release in the episode, in that scene. Let's get into the questions, and here I have only one. What would you choose? What would you choose if you knew you had the opportunity to save your family from certain death, but at a cost? Like Tig's great grand had to do. Like, what would you do? What would you do? Now, prediction. I already made a prediction earlier. That Hippolyta, she gonna figure out the rest of this, whatever needs to be figured out to save her baby, first of all, because Christina shortchanged him, and Christina, karma, you gonna get shortchanged in the end. That's how that karma's gonna play out. It's gonna be a shortchanging of her. Shortchanging. Okay? So that's that. And then also, you know what? First of all, officially on my notes, where's Gia? We haven't seen the last of her. Okay? Then there's these dreams that they've been having. They're due for at least one more dream that could possibly save Tig's life. Okay? So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I am absolutely positive Christina is going to get played. She's about to be shortchanged. I don't know if the universe is going to do it, if the spell is just going to backfire on her, or the Freemans are going to backfire on her, but she's going to get played. Bet. Now, let's talk about the tidbits. So, I wanted to make a podcast recommendation, which is Black Wall Street 1921. This is a podcast that is about Black Wall Street, and it's a podcast series. So they did it this year. It came out this year. I think it started in February. Listen to it. They have actual interview footage from the survivors. The last known survivor actually passed away in 2018. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. It's Black Wall Street 1921. And then I also wanted to say, facing your demons is hella hard. We've seen that in the last 2 episodes. This is not easy, which leads me to, I try to give y'all a little supernatural, spiritual tidbit because this show is about that as well. Shadow work, aka facing your demons. If you're interested in doing shadow work, check out Till Swan on YouTube. Okay. And yeah, this episode was hella intense. All the episodes are intense, but this one, man. Okay, I'm done. We're just gonna end here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And give me a heart emoji. Let me know you listened. Just give me a like, but put a heart emoji in the comments. Like, this episode, it was just tough. It was just tough. That's it for this episode. We have one more to go. Stay blessed, not stressed, and I will see you guys for the last episode. Bye.